Right, welcome back. In this video we're getting underneath the Datsun. We're going to sort the rear suspension out. There's also some other bits and bobs that need doing, so we're going to have a look at those. But in this video it's mainly the rear suspension, so let's crack on. Right, just underneath the Datsun at the minute. Just looking at what I need to do to sort this exhaust out because it is naff. It's leaking in a few places and it's very rusty, so I want to redo the whole thing basically. Picked up this rather nice stainless silencer from scrapyard last week. Nice shallow oval to replace the silencer that's back there. It's been battered, as you do when you start looking at things. You notice stuff that's knackered, like that bush. Rear diff bush is completely collapsed at the back there. Be fun trying to find that. This rear section here appears to just be full of filler, because that should actually be recessed. That's where the bumper sits. So yeah, that just looks like that's absolutely full of filler, which I can actually prove with my magnet. So yeah, and then also just found out that this panel is actually not attached anymore here, which you can see here. You can actually see daylight through there. Okay. So that needs rewelding, which is lovely, and also it's pissing in water from the rear lights. Lots of lovely stuff to sort out. One of the other things I wanted to check on this as well is it's got rather nice KYB aftermarket shocks on it, which don't look too old, but I've got a feeling it's literally just running on the bumper stops, because with how much that droops down, can't imagine there's a lot of shock travel left up there. So I'm going to whip the wheel off, jack the side up and see if there is any shock travel left at all, because I have got some coilovers which might fit. I also need to do the same with the front, because I think the front's very similar. I think it's just on the bump stops. So yeah, lovely stuff when you start looking. Obviously that boot floor needs sorting out. Yeah, if anybody's got a rear diff mount, that would be very handy, because that one has completely collapsed. Right, so I've just removed the shock dust cover thing, so I can see the bush up there. It has actually got bump stop in it, which is nice. So I'm going to jack this up and see where it sits. Right, so that's just lifting off the axle stand now. Hopefully this doesn't fall off. I'll stick my head in there. Pretty sure that shock is right up against the bump stop. Let's turn the light on and try and get a decent look. Yeah, there's probably, just get my fingertip in there, it's probably about 5 mil of travel, which isn't really enough. I mean, I could take the bump stop out, but the bump stop's in there for a reason. So I might see if the coilovers I've got will fit. Well, that's pretty perfect. These are the rear coilovers that came that I bought for the Nova. So these are Mazda. They are for an S14, I believe, Sylvia. These are the coilovers that I bought for the Nova, which I've got on the front of the Nova. So these are the rears that didn't really fit the back of the Nova, so I didn't use them. But they look like they'll be perfect for the back of the Datsun. Fortunately, this has been cut, so we'll have to weld this back up again. But the bottom mount seems to be exactly the right size, so I just have to swap over the top mount. These are adjustable as well, which is nice. Hopefully they'll work. Fortunately, just having a closer look at this, the actual shock body is quite a bit longer. As you can see, this one is at least 3 inches shorter than that one. And it doesn't look like I can adjust this bottom collar up much more, because it looks like the threads are all the way down to here already, so I can't even adjust that further up. So these shocks are actually quite a bit longer, which is unfortunate. So I need to find shorter bodied shocks. Right, back on the Datsun again. It's about a week after the last clip, where I found out these Mazda coilovers aren't going to fit. They're just too long. The body wires are too long. So a bit of hunting around, went to the scrapyard trying to find some struts that would be suitable, but it turns out spring over shock or coilover style rear suspension is very hard to come by, especially ones with this sort of fitting with bolt at the bottom and this sort of mounting at the top. Did a bit of looking on Facebook Marketplace and actually found these. These are from a Mark II MX5. They're just standard shocks and springs, but these were 25 quid for the full set. They were in the next town over, so easy peasy. And I've actually managed to get one bolted up to the Datsun. What I had to do is the bottom mounting, I had to drill that out to 20mm, which is what these are. Took a little while with the drill, with the step drill, and a bit of work on the lathe. But that's now bolted up, and the strut top off the standard shock fitted straight on, which is nice. So yeah, this is all bolted up now. Gonna drop it down and see how it sits. These shocks are, as you can see, quite a bit shorter. The actual shock body, I'm using this as the front one. These are the rears. I think the rears are gonna be a bit too short, so this is a front. So you can see that is a good inch or so shorter, so hopefully that's going to be enough. The only issue I might have with this is I think the springs are probably going to be too stiff, but it was quite soft on these springs anyway. I don't know what I don't think these springs are made for this Datsun. As you can see, they're lower in springs, but even with this spacer thing, it was it literally had no travel left on the shocks. I don't even think they're made for this car. So hopefully this is going to work. And the other reason why this was a good option to go for was being an MX5 suspension setup, very easy to get aftermarket parts for, coilovers. So if this doesn't sit quite right, I can buy some coilovers, which I can adjust the height on. So hopefully it's going to work. Right, hopefully you can see what's going on. I'll try not to get in the way of the camera. Just going to lower this down. That's fairly successful. Looks a bit too low though, that's the only thing. That's not even settled yet, and the other side is still on the standard suspension setup. Has got a lot more travel though. It is very, very low. I was hoping for it to be a little bit higher than that, so what I might be able to do, try fitting this spacer thing just to raise it up a bit. I know this car is supposed to be very low, but compared to the front that's actually too low. So I'll whip that out again and try and fit in this spacer. Right, what I've come up with here is I've just made up two of these spacers. They're 22mm, and I managed to actually just push that up in there. This spring perch pushes off with a bit of persuasion from a hammer, and then that perch just sits on these little flared bits. So yeah, that spacer just gone on top of there, so that this perch is now sitting on top of that spacer and is now 22mm higher up, so hopefully it will sit 22mm higher. Whether that will be enough, I don't know, but it's better than nothing. So I'll get this back together again and then lob it on the car and see where it sits now. Right, that's all back on again now, so let's drop down and hopefully with a bit more of a sensible height. I think that's a bit closer to where it was before. Probably still a bit lower than I'd like, but at least it has suspension travel now. And it doesn't feel too stiff either, so I think I'll probably call it at that. I think get the other side done and then we'll see how it sits. It's just about to chuck it down now. Lovely. That's both struts done now. I've stuck the sleeves in with the king of all adhesives, Tiger Seal, so they're never coming out again. So yeah, I'm going to lob them in and drop it down, and hopefully it'll be sitting about where it needs to be. Let's get them in. Right, they're bolted on now. Just going to pull it out and have a look, see how it sits. hopefully you can hear me okay. Just thought I'd take you out in the Datsun just to have a little drive to see how the new rear suspension is. Before, with the old setup, it was very bouncy, as you can imagine, with basically running on the bump stop. So I think I definitely need to do something with the front end, because you might hear in the video it's a little bit crashy and there's not a lot of suspension travel on the front end. So let's go for a drive. Right, you may be able to hear there's a few crash and bangs. That's mainly from the front suspension. I don't know whether I've got loose ball joint or if it's just lack of suspension travel, but it is a bit crashy. On a smooth road it's perfectly fine, but yeah, you get on a bit of a bumpy road, it does crash and bang around a little bit, but it's definitely better than it was. The rear suspension's much softer, well, not really softer, but it's a lot more suspension travel, so it definitely feels much better. Very low cars go, it doesn't drive too badly, to be fair, but I still want to make it better. It helps being on the bigger wheels that I put it on. Got a bit more rolling radius to smooth out the bumps a bit, but they're still only 15, so it's not massive, obviously. I do try and drive the car a fair bit. I try and take it out at least once a week. It's not terrible to drive. It's no worse than my it's no worse than other cars that I've had in the past. So yeah, before on a road like this, I'd be sort of bouncing around quite a bit. Relatively smooth now. So that's it for this video. We'll see you next time. Like and subscribe and do all that stuff. We'll see you next time.